Welcome back to Key Point. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. We're also live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and also W93.5. A number of your messages coming through, I acknowledge them because some of them have already been answered by Richard Ahiagba in talking. Prince Charles Osayajiman, thank you. He says we should stop making excuses that our democracy is young. If it is young as we claim, there are old democracies, and what prevents us from learning from them as fast as we can. And this is just a lame excuse for some of the unpardonable mistakes that we make as a people. And a number of them also for Lawyer Martin Pebu as well. A number of you commenting on the issues we've talked about. And then also to Dr. Rashid Daman. Thank you, Kennedy Ajete, and also Dr. Comensa, that book that he says you should write. And Francis Kwekwa Nane as well, and many of you sending us. Thank you very much for the messages. Now, the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, CLOGSAG, has joined in the calls for the sitting Controller and Accountant General to resign. And they cite the specific laws of this country, plus a case that CLOGSAG itself took to the Supreme Court in 2017. That's CLOGSAG versus the Attorney General and two others, concerning civil servants taking part in active partisan politics, and the emphasis on active partisan politics in this country. Take a look at Isaac Bampuado in that exclusive interview with my colleague, Daniel Opoko, our chief labor correspondent. Take a look.
As and when your political coloring is overtly known, that's openly known, you must leave the service. It's not about you even picking a nomination form. Once it is overtly, you involve yourself in any activity that shows your political coloring, you must resign. And that's it. There's no other ambiguity about this. Likewise, you cannot owe your appointment to partisan activity.
Well, this is the specific position of the law, and I'm just going to make reference to a few of them, and then also acknowledge the presence of Professor Kweku Azar. Professor Kweku Azar, thank you so much for joining us here on Key Point. But this is what the position of the law, and would establish the premise for it as well. And then also, Martin Pebu brought a huge book, the Constitution and other laws to support this particular position that has been espoused over the period. But while we get to the law, Mr. Agba, I mean, this is a conversation that is on the laps of the MPP as a political party. This sitting controller wants to contest on your party's ticket in the Achimswedo constituency. He's picked his nomination forms, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Does the party have any specific provision about his situation, as in a sitting controller not resigning, wants to contest, or you're going to deal with that at the vetting level?
No, thank you, Alfred. Yes, so specific to your question, the party doesn't have any rule against that. And so that does not arise in terms of the preliminary qualifications that one needs to have to be able to represent the party as its candidate. This Controller and Accountant General is unique.
It's a unique situation.
Yeah, it's a unique situation. And I think that I want to listen to what argument people would make.
Okay.
But as far as I am concerned, nothing precludes him. The cases that people are making, well, it's a democracy. We must welcome all those dissensions and people speaking their minds. But I think that it doesn't preclude him from running. And I think that he's in the clear. Unless people have some evidence that I don't have, or most people
so
don't
let's
have,
get into
that he understands. So I think that they should carry on with the debate, but I think...
So as a party, you're saying you've taken interest in the conversation, the debate that's going on. And what's the end objective? Is it going to influence any decision that or consideration the party will take?
No, like I said, there's nothing that precludes him as a member of the party to run on the party's ticket.
Let's see what the position of the law is.
The absence of any inhibition, I think that he's free to carry on and run. Okay.
We'll hear the various legal arguments, but take a look at this. This is what we're talking about when it comes to the position of the law. So Article 94.3b, and that's one of the many articles Lawyer Matikbebu and then Professor Kukuaza make reference to, and Lawyer Bobby Banson as well. It says a person shall not be, and the emphasis on shall not be eligible to be a member of parliament if he is a member of the police service, the prison service, the armed forces, the judicial service, the legal service, and in the civil service.
Right.
Civil service. The audit service, the parliamentary service, goes on and talks about a few more.
Yeah.
The statistical service, the fire service, the customs, excise and preventive service, the immigration service,
and internal revenue service.
And internal revenue service. So 94.3b is very clear on who cannot contest as a member of parliament.
Yeah.
Right. But the details of it in there is also, it brings up a number of issues as well. Let me bring in...
No. So the specific question you're asking, yes, it falls within this category.
Exactly.
Okay. Of 94B. But remember, I told you that he's a unique case. Where he sits, he is not in a sense a civil servant. Right? He is he's an appointee, right? He's been appointed. So he's not in the normal process of time a civil servant serving the nation, but because of his particular circumstance now, he is not a civil servant in the true sense, but he's an appointee of the government, serving as the Controller Accountant General in that role. So in essence, this does not apply to him, in my view. Okay. Let the argument be made so we can
that's your view, but what's the position of the law? What's your position? What's the position of the law? Lawyer Martin Bebo, I bring you here at this point on the view of Richard Ahiagba and what the position of the law
or
is.
the Chief of Defense Staff go and contest parliamentary seat.
Good, excellent. So look, let's go straight for the jugular. The Supreme Court was very clear that when you are in the civil service, as soon as your political activities become overt, you must resign immediately. Let's repeat. The Supreme Court says, that's the Clockser versus Attorney General, that as soon as your political activities and affiliations become overt, you must immediately resign. So it has nothing to do with picking nominations. So it can even be, let's say, a day after the president is sworn in, you go back to the workplace as a civil servant, then you go whichever party is in power. Or maybe, let's say, if a third force candidate comes in, then you go in there, and then you're showing the third force candidates this is what you call the T-shirt, and trying to show that, yes, this is my political leaning, blah, blah, blah. You're saying that it's prescribed. It's about the overtness, the manifestation, so that everybody can see, like we say locally, Gani. The Supreme Court says that is not allowed in the civil service. It's the Controller and Accountant General in the civil service. Yes, you read the Public Financial Management Act. He reports to the Minister for Finance. He is in charge. Budgets, things go through him. Hey, how can I just say he's an appointee? Yes, he's an appointee, but where is he operating? In the civil service, he is reporting to the Minister for Finance. Many things you read in the Public Financial Management Act, and you see his role. You're looking for payments and the rest. They have to go through him before they get to Bank of Ghana for withdrawals of money, etc. That role he's playing is civil service. It is civil service. It's not just political appointment. Yes. So let's say, and then now the parties have been doing it. Nowadays, the parties come in chief directors. They go and take people who are academics and make the person a chief director. So you are saying that if you make an MPP member a chief director, you say that no, he's not working in the civil service. You say it's not working. Must he be like what he's trying to distinguish is career civil servants and those who are just appointed. It doesn't matter. The value is the same. It doesn't matter. The value. The point is that what work is he doing? That's what is it. Where is he operating? Is it in the civil service? And they say every employee. After all, under Article 190 is the president who appoints the public service. When you go to Article 190, it's the president who appoints anyway. So whether he brings a party apparatchiki or it's this, what do you call it? The person is already in the service already. It's the same thing. He continues his office at the behest of the, what do you call it? The president. So you look at it. Article 190, so the public services shall include the following, blah, blah, blah. Then they go on. So what I'm saying is that if you go by what the Supreme Court, and these are the reasons. So now let's go into the reasons.
It's going to be on the screen right now while you do the clock serve versus Attorney General.
Page 218. This is what the Supreme Court says at 218. After reading out the purpose of the civil service, the object, and let me just read briefly. It says the object of the service is to assist the government in the formulation and implementation of government policies for the development of the country. Then you go to the functions. So quickly, initiate and formulate policy options for the consideration of the government, initiate and advise on government plans, undertake the necessary research for the effective implementation of government policies, blah, blah, blah. So then he goes on to say that to be effective, the work of a civil servant in Ghana, no matter the level of operation, have you heard, requires some expectation of efficiency, discretion, loyalty, and public trust. At this stage of our socio-political development, when political discourse is all pervasive and rivalry can easily trigger a whole range of reactions, including even violence, it would be most unhealthy to countenance civil and local government servants who publicly proclaim their partisan leanings in the public space. Whilst their membership of a party is their right, the open manifestation of such leanings cannot augur well for a neutral workplace and demonstrable assurance of transparency and anonymity and neutrality in decision-making or executions of functions is crucial. Otherwise, a public perception of political corruption in all its forms, including bias, nepotism, abuse of position, opacity, and lack of accountability, will be engendered, thereby weakening the effectiveness of these government services to the detriment of the nation as a whole. Okay? Then you go on. So they refer to the Canadian case of Osborne. Then they go on and make all the, and repeat again at page 220. This is what they say. They say that the civil and local government service are expected to remain in place, functioning in a professional manner to ensure continuity and process integrity in the administration of day-to-day governance. Visible partisanship and overt display of lack of professional neutrality and objectivity would be a betrayal of the just expectation of the people of Ghana and impair even further the efficiency and effectiveness of these key governance institutions. Then you go finally. So at page 224, when they concluded, they mentioned that when the nomination, which is usually the old law, when you are nominated, resign. But they add that, moreover, such a person shall resign from his or her office immediately his or her political activities become overt. So,
in fact, that's what is
yeah,
on
so
the
Mr.
screen.
Let's go back briefly. What happened was that before this case, there was MPP versus NDC. There was an old case of a chief director at the Ministry of Finance at the time. Kofi Menu.
Is it Kwaku Menu or Kofi Menu?
Okay.
Kwaku Menu. He became Ashanti Regional Minister.
Excellent.
Subsequently, he contested the NDC seat in Asante Achem.
And there was even Alaji Jawula.
Alaji Jawula.
Yes. So at that time, that case, the Supreme Court said the time to resign.
Resigned.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yes, so it's fine. So at that time, the Supreme Court held that the time to resign is when the party officially nominates the candidate by presenting his papers to the EC. So that's how come the Kofi Menu case, they said, or whatever his name. Me, I know he was a chief director at the Ministry of Finance. So that's how come the chief director's case, they said no, he needn't resign. But he will resign at the time his papers are presented. Good. Do you know what they even did? How many years on? Over 20 years, okay, about 17 or so years on, the Supreme Court looks at it and says that no. They don't want any party apparatchiki openly displaying their party affiliations at the workplace. So it means that you can be a party member, what? Secretly. That's it. What you do in your bedroom, etc., it's not a matter. Secretly, you're a party, and we know them. In the civil service, they are all over there. Some of them, in actual fact, if you don't declare your partisanship, you don't get promoted. And people who are perceived, look, go to the civil service. You see lots of people who are suffering today because they are perceived to be NDC. They are not getting promotion. They have been constructively dismissed. Work doesn't come on their tables. I have lots of people like that. I know personally. Some of them, we are even lacing our boots to go activate their processes in the civil service. And if it doesn't work, we'll go to court. It works. They know who is NDC, who is MPP. But that's secretly. So, but they're saying as soon as you begin making it overtly, then go. That's why the Supreme Court was scared. It says that such a person shall resign from his or her office immediately his or her political activities become overt. So in this particular case, it's not the picking of the nomination forms. Well, maybe that's the icing on the cake. The moment the story broke and he accepted that, yes, he's running, because I read in the Daily Graphic some weeks ago, a group that came out and said, yes, they are the people on the ground campaigning for him. It was on the back of allegations that he had put them on government payroll. And those people came out to deny that they are not on government payroll, but they are the team. They are working for his candidature. So once it was confirmed that that is Mr. Kwesi Kwenim being MPP, and at the same time controller, no. At the workplace, I'm even picking signals that the workers are very angry. Yeah, and you too, you are sitting down there, come on block, come outside. They are very angry because they are not being paid some allowances, and because of his divisive character. Workers are angry there. They send you, what do you call it?
Those
yes,
are
they are angry. They've even written to the presidency over their allowances. It's public knowledge.
You are assassinating someone's character because of his divisive. You see,
but that is it. When you don't pay people their allowances, it's not division.
So that's what the workers told you.
No.
It's there. They've written to the presidency. Can we?
When
we say divisive, it's all
because of his divisive character.
Yes, they are angry.
Liberty. Hold on.
When you don't pay somebody his salary, when you are busy paying people,
we're having a very simple conversation.
Yes.
But you see, what you
the word would say divisive is correct.
No,
gentlemen.
But you see, we can all drift off and as character assassinate you. You don't have monopoly on insulting people. You've been doing that.
What is insulting about? When they say open your dictionary. No, Mr. Okansi, no. What is the meaning of divisive?
If I say you are divisive character, is that something you welcome?
Okay. No, if you don't pay people, if you don't pay people their due, and the government machinery is running, and you are giving money to the presidency, and the president is flying luxury jets, is that not divisive?
This is TV. You must be decorous. You must be decorous. If TV3 is allowing a platform to insult people, I will take it from you.
Please don't take insult.
Because that's what it is.
What is the meaning of divisive? If you find the presidency to run luxury jets and you don't pay allowance, is that not divisive?
You cannot just argue yourself out of this. If I call Okansi a divisive character, is that a compliment?
So is that what the gentlemen?
Alfred, you need to regulate because he doesn't have monopoly on insult.
Okay,
how can you just sit here and an individual who's lived this life and you call him a divisive character? How you said so many things.
I will read the letter.
If TV3 wants to continue to give you a platform to insult people, we will
not an insult.
It's an insult.
Not an
What makes
insult.
you think that you determine what is an insult?
Doing something that divisive.
You didn't say divisive. You said his divisive character.
You
That's what
make
I'm saying.
reference to
Yeah,
what the
You don't
workers
listen
have
to
told
yourself
you.
when you
Okay,
talk.
gentlemen,
You don't listen to yourself when you talk.
let me bring in. Let me bring in. Let me bring in. Gentlemen. Let me bring him.
You always wanted to say this.
Let me bring him. Gentlemen.
The presidency.
Let me bring in Professor Kukwasa is been on the one. Professor Kukwasa, let me bring you on this point, on this particular issue. What's your position on this, Professor Kukwasa?
It's a good question and very troubling developments, Albert, because as you so rightly pointed out, the public service and also therefore the civil service, they are supposed to be politically neutral. And the reason neutrality is so important is that as a service, as a machinery, you want the ministers of the day and the government of the day to have trust in your implementation of the policies that they come up with. Second, you want successive governments to have trust in you. That when power transfers to another government, they have confidence in you because they know you guys are career-oriented and you go about doing your duties without any partisan interest attached. And third, you want the general public to have trust in you. So when I heard that the Comptroller and Accountant General was actually contemplating running for primaries, and today I learned that he had actually picked up forms, I was shocked because you mentioned that the head of the civil service has sent out a reminder. But not just the reminder, it is also a constitutional problem. Article 94(3) is crystal clear. And let's see if I can find my constitution here and then read it out to the benefit of those who may not have a constitution with them. It says, and I quote, "A person shall not be eligible to be a member of parliament if he is a member of the police service, the prison service, the armed forces, the judicial service, the legal service, the civil service, the audit service, the parliamentary service, the statistical service, the fire service, the customs, excise, and preventive service, the immigration service, or the internal revenue service." If you are an employee of any of those services that are listed, then the Constitution says you cannot be a member of parliament. What does that mean? This has actually been interpreted by the Supreme Court in a case that is called CLOSAG, the Civil Service Local Government, the Association versus Attorney General. And in that case, the Supreme Court was very clear that Article 94(3)(b) means if you are a member of the civil service, you cannot overtly engage in partisan activities. That, for instance, means you cannot join the campaign of a political party. You cannot pick up forms to run for the position of a political party. You cannot run for a political party in general elections unless you have resigned from the civil service. So it is very clear that what he's doing is a violation of the Constitution. And I'm surprised nobody has stopped him. I'm surprised the Attorney General has not stopped him. Now, CLOSAG should be distinguished from another case called Kwajogan Adra. The Kwajogan Adra was an earlier case which said members of the public service that are not listed in the article that I just read can participate in partisan political activities. But it is so clear that if you are a civil servant, then you cannot participate in political activities openly, like the Controller and Accountant General is doing. A lot of people get confused by the two cases, the Kwajoga Adra case versus the Closer case, because they don't make that clear distinction between the public service and the civil service. Every civil servant is a public servant, but not every public servant is a civil servant. So there are some members of the public service who are allowed to engage in partisan political activities. I disagree with the Supreme Court on that, but that's another issue. I think all public servants should not openly engage in partisan activities because of the political neutrality principle. I believe the political neutrality principle should apply to all public servants. But let's set my personal views aside and let's just go with the Supreme Court view. The Supreme Court has said, if you are a civil servant, then you cannot engage in open political activities like the Controller and Accountant General is doing. So the Controller and Accountant General is violating the Constitution and he should be stopped.
And for me, you said it should be stopped. So in this instance, the position that has been taken, in fact, that's what Mr. Richard Ahiagba has been explaining about the parties. Well, he says the party hasn't really taken any position on the matter as yet, and that they are also following the debate to see what happens next. He makes reference to the controller being an appointee of the president. So any specific distinction between the career functions of this controller and accountant general and then he being an appointed civil servant for that matter? Professor?
At any point where you express that interest, because remember the concept, the idea is we want you to be politically neutral. Imagine if this civil servant has expressed an intention to run for, let's say, the opposition party, and you are a minister of the other party, and yet you are going through that person to implement government policy. How would that make you feel as the minister? That's why I set up my conversation by indicating why it's important that civil servants are politically neutral, because that's the basic governmental machinery. And if government does not trust you because you have indicated an intention or you have overtly indicated your political affiliation, then that becomes a big problem. You are allowed to, of course, support a political party because this is a democracy, but you are not allowed to overtly do things that will indicate that you are politically biased, because as soon as you do that, then it becomes incompatible with your position as a civil servant.
So the argument is that until he takes the step to, for instance, submit his nomination forms, it may be a mere intention. So if resigning will cure this anomaly, as you pointed out, at what point you say, just at the point of even picking the nomination forms, it is covertly known that this is what he intends to do. So if the report of him having the intention to contest as a parliamentary candidate is anything to go by, which hasn't been denied, he's picked the forms, he should have resigned by now. That's the argument you make?
Long ago, once you signal that intention to run for a political party, and knowing how our political parties are, you cannot even run for a political party unless you've nurtured the constituency and so on and so forth. There are all other things that they require you to do. So you are telling the general public that you are a partisan, occupying a position. How can you meaningfully a non-partisan while simultaneously signaling to people that you are not only a partisan, but you are a deep blue partisan who takes care of constituents or who nurtures constituencies and who is even getting ready to run for political office in that particular case. So that's why I cited the closer case. The closer case, the Supreme Court was clear that such persons they don't have a right to contest for elections, for political party office, or hold political party office while still members of the civil service. They do not have the right to participate overtly in political party activities. Overtly in political party activities. That's why I said you cannot even go and stand on the campaign platform of a political party because that would be overt. You can do it covertly, for instance, by voting for them, by giving them some behind the scene advice. But once it becomes overt, once overt means everybody sees it, overt means undercover. But once you expose yourself, like even as a journalist, let me use you as an example. Even as a journalist, if you come out and say, well, overtly, I am for this party, people will no longer give you the same level of attention that you are getting because now they know you are a partisan. And so even media guys who are smart are very careful to disguise their political affiliations. They are citizens, so they support one party or the other. Even people like me, I support a party, but in many of my engagements, I put my party colors aside and engage as a statesman who is trying to bring clarity to the topics at stake and so on. I don't let my partisan background influence the things that I'm saying. If people start believing that you, the civil servant, you are overtly campaigning or overtly engaged in activity of a political party, you immediately lose your credibility.
Say, Dr. Rashid Rahman, you wanted to make a quick input on this matter, and then I'll bring in Neil and Tate. Because now, I think, Richard, you are now getting the different perspectives, because that's what you wanted.
Yes. But I'm not convinced just yet about the positions.
Well, Dr. Rashid Rahman.
Yes, so Alfred, I think what I wanted to say is that, first of all, I know, there's been a lot of arguments, citing the Supreme Court ruling and so on, and our Constitution. I want to say that not everything that is legal is ethically right. So I think we have to let this at least be something that should guide, particularly the two major political parties. In our country today, I think the country is so polarized and so divided politically that if you ask me, I would say let's leave the politics to Parliament and then to the political parties, and let us not bring this down to a situation where we politicize our civil and public service, because that's the last bastion, if you like, that we have, that we can all look up to, because we've been talking about Parliament here and how as soon as matters come before the House, immediately I think you begin to see issues being divided along partisan political lines. I know today, if NDC was in power, maybe we are going to see some of what we've been seeing in terms of the party supporting government position. This is not new. This is not only unique to the MPP. So my point is, there are very good reasons why we want to keep our civil and public servants away from politics. And I think I mean, the parties must do all in their power to make sure that we don't get to this level, because you know, I mean, minorities change, majorities change, and we don't want a situation where we set a very bad precedent, and tomorrow this becomes, you know, an equalization act. This party did this, and we can also do this, and so on. On the matter of resignation, I think in our country we don't have the culture of resignation. You know, people will do all the wrong things. I mean, once they have the backing of the political class, I mean, it's very difficult to get people to resign. Elsewhere, I think just one call, you know, by people in public will lead to maybe somebody like this saying, look, it looks like what I'm trying to do, I mean, it's not in tandem with what society expects. We don't have that culture here. I mean, except, of course, we are seeing that now in Parliament, where people are willingly trying to resign, whether they are being pushed or they are being, you know, they are jumping and so on and so forth. So I think for the good of our country, please, let's try and make sure that, you know, if somebody is interested in running for political office, let them go and run. It's their right. But let them leave that public space. Particularly somebody at this high level in government, I mean, the government's accountant. I think we know why people have concerns. I mean, it's about money, it's about issues revolving around our resources, and sometimes perceptions can lead to all kinds of problems in society. So that's what I want to say, Alfred.
I see. So it's more about the optics for you.
Indeed, indeed.
Okay. Nila Tivanapoy, before Bobby Banson, because you made reference to some precedents and what had happened in previous instances as against what is happening now. Yeah. Why is this particular situation of concern, especially because we're looking at even not just the controller, but the larger conversation about civil servants, right? In getting into politics, for that matter.
Well, Alfred, I'm not surprised because this particular government has virtually, let me say, mutilated almost all our structures. And I said, they politicize everything. The example of the Supreme Court is there, where people who have participated in political activity in a very partisan manner contested parliamentary seats. People who have been communication officers of a party, people who have been pool agents of a party are becoming electoral commission members. People who have been parliamentary candidates are becoming Supreme Court judges. What can they do? If the judiciary, if the electoral commission, they've been able to set aside these ethical principles, as Rashid calls it, aside to use their power, their impunity, and push people onto the, why can't they do this? Let me give you an example. In 1996, the head of the, not even the head of the civil service, no, the head of the civil service then, at that time, Dr. Dodo, once appeared on a political campaign platform of the NDC. It was insisted that he resigned. He wasn't a candidate.
He appeared on the platform.
Yes, the campaign was in his constituency, so he went and sat there. He was given the opportunity to sit on the days. There was also Alex Dodu, who was then the head of the PWD. And it was insisted that he became a candidate in, I think, Odododio at that time, and then Ashedu Keteke. Just because there was the indication that he should be a candidate. The opposition then, Dwayne Sykes and the rest, insisted that he must leave his position at the PWD. Sitting here myself, I won the primaries in 2002. I was then working with GBC. It took a friend of mine, a judge, to advise me to resign.
Because you're a civil servant at the time.
A public servant.
Public servant, for that matter.
He said it is not just about the law, but morally. you are also a commentator. And the vital aspect of your work is that you do ceremonial commentary involving the president and others. How do you feel as a person, you being an NDC parliamentary candidate, running commentary on activity of the president? In fact, as soon as I said I felt guilty, I felt indicted. So really I went back, discussed, and I put up my resignation letter and left GBC. So it's a matter of principle. But when it's all part of the system, I think that we should, as a country, all of us should be working through in order to strengthen our institutions and insulate our institutions from partisan political activities. Because, let me tell you, I don't really mind if Ayagba 2025 I become a minister and Ayagba works for me in the ministry. I don't mind. Because I will insist he does his work. And I will make him work so hard, and I will take the credit for it. But you see, when you become head of the public service, civil service, internal revenue service, and other institutions, you are seen to be part of the governance system and not the government. The governance system. So you're supposed to be that open to all shades of opinion and work in the interest of all Ghanaians. So the mandate that you take is to serve all Ghanaians and not serve a section of the country. I want to relax Richard a bit. When he said the man was appointed, that's why I asked him a simple question. Is the president not the one who appointed the IGP? Can we say IGP can get up tomorrow and go and pick a form to contest a political position? A political party position. Contest as a member of parliament and still hold on to his position as IGP. What about the CDS? They were all appointed by the president.
But there are different circumstances.
Your appointment has nothing to do with the political. It's the role that you perform. Just that designation that you are appointed or elected is different from the role that is expected of you from the Constitution.
Well, in this case, that's consequential, that you are not a member. If you see the ruling, it says a member.
The head of the civil service, is a member of the civil service.
No, the ruling that Martin read was specific that you cannot be a member. We're talking about an isolated, different
and
instance.
I'm saying a head of the civil service is a member of the civil service.
Well, okay, you finish. When I can.
You can't tell me. You can't tell me that the head of the audit service is not a member of the audit service. The controller and accountant general is not a member of the civil service. You can't tell me. You can't tell me. You can't tell me that as we sit today. Let me take the local government service. That Nana Tuata can tomorrow get up and go and pick a parliamentary form and say he's going to contest parliamentary and still hold on to the position of head of the local government service when he's sacking people from the local government service for showing partisanship. Just even if you wear a political party shirt in the local government service, you are dismissed. Yeah. So it is the principle that we are all talking about there. It is important that we try and insulate our structures, our governance structures, especially the security services, the controller, the civil service, the local government service, public service, and make sure that they do the work that the Constitution mandates them to do, so that they don't overly become vehicles and conduits for political victimization, political oppression, and also corruption. It is important.
Right.
If we don't do that, we will end up destroying all these institutions. It is important that as a minister, I should work to the ministry, knowing that all the civil servants there are Ghanaians who want to serve me.
Right.
And not to have doubts about individuals because of their political persuasions.
So, I hope you give me
yes, you.
Because I literally ceded my time to listen
Exactly,
to
to respond to that. So we'll go for a quick break. When we're back, Bobby Manson will have a take, and you would, because you wanted context and a lot more background to the positions taken. We'll be back shortly after this quick break. Stay with us.
Bells all the way to a magical Christmas with Melcom this December. From 4th December 2023 to 7th January 2024, save big with discounts up to 60% on countless items at any Melcom store nationwide. This offer is valid in store and online at www.melcom.com. Terms and conditions apply. Melcom, where Santa shops.
Hey, na no fe ukwanya wo kasa ubwafo musi.
Enya me brother Mr. Happiness na ehame. Me see wo hu say Ghana Post aye fast, reliable and affordable nti. Na nsen na numa ye ni de edwanya kuma me di e de kwama no e fa Ghana Post. Wa di ni nyina. Ene se wasa aswan ma sakodi dwa me de kwa Ghana Post yo. We ko bi kakra Ajone kakra, akrantie so shase. Ghana Post,
the most affordable delivery option for food and merchandise from Ghana to everywhere in the world. Connect with us today and see for yourself. Ghana Post, smart, secure deliveries.
Mensa coming package, no. In less than 5 days, Ghana Post, they make life the big. Ghana Post will deliver to you wherever you are in the world.
On New Year's Day, January 1st, 2024, at 7 p.m., the legends of High Life will gather at one place for one mission. High Life is the Capfarm Higher Legends Night with the Kings of High Life on New Year's Day at the Grand Arena, Accra International Conference Center, featuring Lee Dwodu, Nana Champon, Ben Bracco, Euphoria Ponsa.
All right, stop. Collaborate and listen.
Jedu Blay Ambule.
I'm out there, fruit.
Charles Amoa. Pat Thomas. George Jarrah. Yes, get your tickets fast. Dial *713*33*30# for VIP single tickets. For VVIP table reservations, call or WhatsApp 0200-220-202 or visit Capfarm Dansuma or East Legon or visit legendsnightgh.com. Capfarm Higher Legends Night with the Kings of High Life.
Mike Brown's Kitchen. Mac Brown's Kitchen.
I'm ready to send me to Mac Brown's Kitchen. Brown. New season, new stations. Hey, Mara. Hey, Mac Brown's Kitchen. Oh, na me who TV so ache. Ani o mu ya che. But the nyamia ye ni enche kra no. But TV3. Me da bia. Ani 5 to 6 p.m. Nana ya ba hwa mo wate. Me ni kunu ni me ma ya ba show sesako Ghana fodo.
McBrown's Kitchen shows this and every Saturday at 5 p.m. on TV3.
Brought to you by
Herbal, Akuma Onion Pay.
Welcome back to Key Point. We're live on 3FM 92.7. Lawyer Bobby Banson, can you hear me?
Alfred, I can hear you.
Great.
Can you hear?
We can hear you, but cannot see you. So please put your camera on. Great. Thank you very much. I mean, the legal positions about this matter has been espoused quite extensively by both Professor Kukwaza and then Lawyer Martin Bebo as well. But then the position that I want to clarify is whether the head of, for instance, is a particular service within the civil service, even though appointed, is a member of the civil service and cannot contest political party position as per the Supreme Court ruling.
Well, Alfred, I think that there is no, or there should not be any dissent in that opinion in respect of that position of the law. Professor Azar, all your panelists, and I mean every lawyer that has had an opportunity to speak on that matter. There's no ambiguity in the position of the Supreme Court or the judgment of the Supreme Court. The wording was very clear on it. I do not see that any attempt to play with the words. For example, like Honorable Nilante said, you cannot be the IGP and say that I'm not a police officer. You cannot. It does not. I don't know how that seems to work. I mean, I was happy when Mr. Hebe said, well, he doesn't have a position. There's no position of the party. They are listening to what people would say and then come up with a position on it. That was his initial comment. And then later, I don't know whether Alfred, you pushed him or so then he jumped ship to attempt to state a position. I think this is an opportunity for the political party, the MPP political party, to make it clear. Maybe it may come up at their vetting. The only interesting thing for me legally is, and Senior Tebu, you may correct me if I'm wrong. I know you made references to the Supreme Court's decision that said that the moment you begin overt or you exhibit overt acts, you should resign. I'm looking at the constitutional, juxtaposing that to when a person qualifies to stand for member of parliament. You remember the Zaneto case. I know it may not have been cited in the cases you refer to, but in the Zaneto, and this is without prejudice to the fact that I completely agree that for what it's worth, for his own conscience, for his own principle as a human being, he should resign. He should have resigned before taking that position. And if at the time of the vetting he has not resigned, I think that the MPP should disqualify him on that basis alone. But be that as it may, my reading and recollection of the Zaneto case, and I stand to be corrected, was that the constitutional requirements for whether you qualify to stand for member of parliament kicks in, I think, when the EC opens nomination, or is it when the person picks the form from the political party? I think the Supreme Court may have said when the EC opens nomination, that is when all the constitutional requirements comes in. And so there seems we have to find a way of marrying the earlier dictum or ratio by the Supreme Court as to you must resign if you exhibit overt political affiliations whilst you hold either civil or public service, and when the constitutional requirements that we have read kicks in. And so for me, that is the only, what I think, in my humble opinion, may be a bit of a gap in the decision, the two decisions, the Zaneto. That is, if my recollection of the Zaneto case is right. Apart from that, I agree. I think that if what Mr. Hebe is saying is not personal position, and gentleman, his is unique. This was appointed by the president. I hope that is his personal position and not the position of the party. He can correct me, which I believe has a very strong legal team. Would be able to advise the elections committee and then do the needful. Other than that, you have a situation if the gentleman does not even go to the premise of the MPP and he still holds on to that position. Is he coming back to it? In what capacity? How will the optics look like? As all have suggested. So I think that it's something that the MPP should take a strong position on it. And again, my inclination as to whether or not there's not a gap between when this constitutional qualification kicks in. Is it when the Electoral Commission opens the nomination or when the person picks up the forms within his primaries?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so like Bobby rightly said, let me chip in this comment.
Quick one.
So the Supreme Court is clear. So Bobby, you see that the earlier decisions, the chief director of the Ministry of Finance case, the Zaneto case, and that one was about what? Presenting the nomination forms to the EC. That's why the Supreme Court said, once your papers are, presented to the EC, you resign. Okay. But this one, Clarkson went to court to say that they have a right to be openly partisan. Right. And the Supreme Court said, no. So so that question didn't arise in Zaneto. It didn't arise in the Ministry of Finance case. So now, frontally, this question arises in the Clarkson case, and the Supreme Court said no partisan politics.
Okay, let me bring Mr. Agba. No. Respectfully, I want us to stick to that. No, Mr. Agba.
No. I'm just making a comment in support of what he said. That this particular judgment, this particular Zaneto case has been rendered moot by the recent judgment on the Jachikwuesin case.
Okay. The Supreme Court judgment on the intricacies have now shifted the qualification from even when you file to contest on the party ticket.
I see.
I find that very interesting because the Supreme Court in the Jachikwesu case,
it brings up another dimension to it. Yes. Do you have a consolidated understanding of position?
No, but yeah. So there's no doubt about rendering the position of the law. I think there's no dispute about that. But what I am saying is that you have a unique situation in this Comptroller and Accountant General's position, where technically he was out of the service, brought back in, right? All the examinations that we're talking about, none of them conform to his particular situation. If anybody wants to parallel what ruling exists to say that therefore he resigns, I'm saying that there's a unique instance. Perhaps the Supreme Court should examine it and give a ruling that if the individual leaves, and that's why Honorable's example with the IGP and the rest of it doesn't align, because he's inherently still in the service, right? But he had gone out and come in by appointment. So technically, he is not a civil servant in the true sense of the word. He is a government appointee on the basis of that, right? Because the rulings before is not the same as this. A little bit of a difference is here. And it doesn't lie in Martin's mouth to say, this is the rule, and so therefore. No, that's why we have Supreme Court. Let them examine it, that the separate instance or the unique situation here, do we still apply the same rule?
He's a subordinate to the Minister of
Finance. I didn't invite you to make a comment. I'm speaking specifically. I'm speaking specifically to the uniqueness of his situation and say that there is no rule currently that deals with his position in terms of any ruling. Okay,
but the PFMA.
Yeah, so I'm saying that if we want to apply the same yardstick, there's no ruling that says that this, therefore that. So if anything at all, Martin has time on his hands. Apart from insulting people, he can go to the court. He can go to the courts.
No, yes,
of course, because you have time to insult people. So if you are in the court, that is better. Instead of insulting people, you can go to the court, and then that will focus your mind on the law rather than sitting on TV and insulting people.
Now the point,
what you have, if you haven't, you'll be defending yourself. The point I am making clearly is that we have a unique situation before us. Whilst the yardstick we want to use to measure it, this is different. Let the Supreme Court, those who are quick to say, oh, because this rule he must resign and all of that, let them understand that there's a uniqueness that really needs to be examined. So if anything at all, let's allow the Supreme Court to examine that and say, well, can a person...
Don't you think the president should have appointed him?
No. So that's not for me to say. That's not for me to say. But the point, now listen. That is not for you or for me to say. Maybe when you become the president, you say minister. I don't know. But when you become president, you can do that. But you see, the point I want to make, quite apart from that, Alfred, is that when Professor Kokwaza was speaking, he made a point that Professor Kokwaza, is a known MPP. Right? His political colors are known, but he does his work independent of his political leading. So an individual who is there per his expertise and is doing specific work and improving...
But he's not holding public office.
Hold on. But I'm saying that is a concept I'm trying to sell to you.
Right.
So that it doesn't matter what the space is, but you are professional. And our civil service and our public space, we have rules that must ensure accountability. So the emphasis should not be on your political leaning. I think we have evolved, right? To the point where we can say that we are focusing on content.
Right.
And ensuring our accountabilities are in rules rather than jettisoning people. Because Martin and yourself, briefly, Martin and yourselves were here arguing fervently about losing people in Parliament. Right. But then the content of the Accountant General, what it brings to the job is something that is of value.
It's important. That's right. Richard Ahiagba is National Director of Communications of the MPP. To you as well, Dr. Rashid Rahman, thank you very much. Neil Lante van der Poy, Thank you very much. Because this is not going to be the last time you'll be here. Because his ambitions after Parliament is pretty important. Lawyer Martin Pebu, I always appreciate your time coming through. And also Bobby Bansing, thank you for joining us. Professor Kukuaza, appreciate your time as well. On behalf of the rest of the team, we thank you. This is the last edition of Key Points for the year 2023. We'll be back in the year 2024, which is an election year. Together with you, would help to improve on this democracy in this country that we have. I am Alfred Okanse. Have a happy new year.